Do you feel like the U.S. Constitution is being strained in Washington? And what can Senator Bennett do to help maybe enforce the oath of office, which is to support and defend the Constitution from enemies abroad and domestic?
Well, I think that the returning to a more clear-cut understanding of the Constitution, both in the elected offices and in the judgeships, would be very helpful. And I think that ultimately happens because the American people insist on it. And they insist on it by election. Senator Bennett can play a role in developing that kind of approach, but I think it comes down to winning elections and electing people who are committed to constitutional government, something which both Senator Bennett and I strongly believe in.
But how important is the oath of office for people to be aware of that and do what they can to see that that isn't violated?
I think I speak for both of us, but I'll say something I do say.
Okay.
Every time I took the oath of office, which I did 10 times, I took that oath very seriously as a solemn pledge to my country, and to my family, to my children and my grandchildren, that I would try to do the right thing within the framework of the law and the Constitution.
I felt exactly the same way about every oath I have taken. But one of the points that I think should be made in this talk about be faithful to the Constitution is the question of what does the Constitution mean and what does the Constitution say? And we've just seen an example on the Supreme Court where the 9 people who have been charged by the Constitution with determining what it says have split 5 to 4 on their decision as to what it says. That is as old as the country. Jefferson and Adams split as to what the Constitution meant. Each one convinced that if the other were elected, the country would immediately fail and the Constitution would go down. People say, well, Senator Bennett, you don't have a training in the law to understand the Constitution. I know 2 of my colleagues who have been constitutional scholars and have taught constitutional scholarship in law school, with whom I quite vigorously disagree. One of them is named Obama, and the other one is named Biden. So I think we should be a little bit careful in saying all we need to do is have everybody honor his or her oath of office to the Constitution, because there are as many versions as to what the Constitution really means as there are careful examiners of the wording and history of it. And I ultimately come down on the same place as Professor Rex Lee, who was the Solicitor General under President Reagan, and accepted as one of the best constitutional authorities and lawyers ever to plead before the Supreme Court, when he said, with all the disagreements we have as to what the Constitution means, ultimately the Constitution itself says that the interpretation should be left to the courts.